Good morning, everyone. How are you? Sun's shining. I know that's unusual for Indiana. We're grateful for it. The weather's not freezing. That's awesome. Welcome to IT Leaders Northeast Indiana. This is our first meeting of 2025. We are in the Indy market as well, and in Louisville, and we've opened in Denver and Phoenix as well, and we're about to open 4 more cities over the course of 2025. So the word is spreading. There's directors and managers and staff IT positions all over the country who could use help with their leadership training and their people skills, and that's why we're here. A couple of things: the bathrooms are out by the stairwell. If I didn't ask you your name so I can keep track of who showed up, please stop by on your way out and let me know. This is not attendance, but I do like to keep track of who's come so we can know what companies have been here, and so we can help spread the word so more people can attend. Also, I will probably be reaching out to you after this meeting for a follow-up call just to get some feedback from you on content and on timing and that sort of thing. That feedback is super important for us to keep the quality high. So if you wouldn't mind taking 15 minutes with me after the meeting, sometime in the next couple of weeks, it would be very valuable to me and to IT leaders. Who are we and why are we here? This is a peer group that's free, price is right, and it is for directors and managers and staff IT positions. The people who get promoted from individual contributors to untrained leaders. And as you know, HR teaches us to fire people. They rarely teach us how to retain people. So that's what we're here for, is to help you with people skills, help you with leadership skills. We do networking. IT people aren't notoriously good for networking, but we loosen up given the appropriate motivation. And the other thing we do is we have a mentorship program that we run in Indy, and we're thinking about bringing up here, where it's kind of volunteer. We'll have a few mentors in the city, and those of you who might be interested, please reach out to me and tell me if you'd be interested in a mentorship program. It's fairly easy to build, and it's self-service, so it's easy to support from my standpoint. And I don't know about you, but I've had 3 mentors in my life that were transformative. So if you think that might be valuable to you, please let me know. Think about your leadership journey so far. Maybe you're a new leader, maybe you're not a new leader. Here are some of the conclusions I've come to over the years when I was a leader, and as I've heard many leaders speak. I mentioned HR teaches us how to fire people, not to retain them. I am my own best source of leadership training. It's hard to depend on your leadership team. Some are very good at training, but in the end, it's really your responsibility to improve your people skills in your own leadership journey. Here's one that it took me forever to learn, and that was that my team was not wired like me. We had one guy, Gary Bruce, who would never have an answer if we were discussing an issue at the table, but the next day he had the best answer of all of us because he thought about it. He had to ruminate on it. And it took me far too long to figure out that people are wired different than I am, which seems ridiculous, but I'll admit to it. I owe it to my team to be a great leader. You owe it to your leadership team, and you owe it to your direct reports. It's important. It is one of the keystones of building the culture that your company wants and the culture that your teams need. And then one of the hardest things for IT people and engineering in general is I no longer need to be the smartest person in the room. Many, many leaders have a hard time giving up on that. And you almost have to if you want to be effective. Those are my lessons. I'm sure you have your own. I would encourage you to give it some thought. Think about what you've learned so far and maybe what you've got room for improvement on. If you want to stay informed about IT Leaders, oh my gosh, I have the IT Leaders Denver link here. It's IT Leaders Northeast Indiana is the name of the LinkedIn company page. That is a great thing to follow because you'll see all the LinkedIn traffic that happens on that. Also, itleaders.org, there's a Northeast Indiana page as well. And we record these meetings. You see Eric back there, he's our videographer. He records the meetings in the local area, and then he edits the meetings that are done in Phoenix and Denver and the outlying markets. And all of those are on Expedient's YouTube channel, so you can go back and refer back to those and see the slides. Maybe a better way to consume them is the audio version on the IT Leaders podcast. That podcast is called IT Leaders, so it's easy to subscribe to with whichever podcast aggregator that you use, or you can use this link to get to them as well. So we take the 30-minute talks out of these meetings, turn them into audio. That's often what I listen to. When I go back and refer, I'll listen to that first, and if I want to review the slides, I'll then go back to the videos. The videos are the end-to-end meeting. Questions on that? If you like what you see here, take some pictures and post it on your LinkedIn account or on Facebook or whichever social media platforms that you like. I think it's really beneficial for your network to see that. It grows this group significantly, and I think it's valuable to make this meeting bigger for you specifically. The more people are in here, the more opinions you'll hear, and the better opportunity we have to attract bigger speakers and better speakers over time. So if you would be willing to take a couple of pictures and maybe text me one or two so I can post those after the fact, I'd sure appreciate it. This is your part of the meeting. We do this every meeting in every market. We like to talk and crowdsource open positions at your organization and to hear about those of you who might be in transition. So let's start with open positions that might exist in your organization. Anybody have open slots right now? Okay, go ahead. Say your name and your company, please.
Caitlin Scherer, Ruoff Mortgage. I'm hiring a front-end developer.
Front-end developer at Ruoff. Thanks, Caitlin. Go ahead.
Yeah, Drew McMonagle at Lake City Bank. In Warsaw, we have an opportunity for a technology PC help desk manager.
Technology PC help desk manager, Warsaw, Lake City Bank. Great. Who else? Go ahead.
Actually, not for my company, but a friend of mine just reached out to me yesterday. He's helping fill a state position with the state of Indiana.
Okay.
A product manager role, pretty quick fill, contract through the end of the year, likely extended beyond that.
Indy based?
Could be remote.
Could be remote? Wow.
100% remote, yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah, so.
Great. Brian is Eric, the videographer's dad, so carpooled up here today. Jason?
Yeah, we have a VP of software engineering position open right now.
VP of Software Engineering over at Sweetwater. Thank you. Anyone else with open positions? Bob?
We've got a number of positions open. Kelly's been promoted to a manager position, so her position is open at our platform. We've got a supervisor position open at corporate to oversee our BAs and our developers, our corporate developers. We have 20 developer positions open at our new Millennium Building Systems division. We're increasing the size of that team and decreasing some of the contractors that we're using.
Wow. That's Steel Dynamics, by the way, if you don't know who Bob is, Bob Francis. So check their website or touch base with them. Brian?
Good morning, everyone. So, Brian Constine, I'm with Greenway Bank. We don't have any positions, but I just want to put out kind of a public service announcement. The Vera Bradley, I know some people that were kind of caught up in the changes, the layoffs they had at Vera Bradley. I know a decent amount of IT people are floating around related to that, so just putting out that kind of announcement for those people affected by it.
Good to know. Anybody know any of those folks who might have gotten riffed from Vera Bradley? All right, well, tell them to reach out to me if you run across those people, or tell them about the opportunities that you heard in here just now. Anyone else on open positions? Okay. Oh, Chris.
Yeah, Brotherhood Mutual. We have various positions that are open from analysts to developers. Probably what's top of mind for me, though, is we have a security architect position that we're getting ready to pose. So it's an individual contributor, but a high-end security individual contributor.
I hear that security is a thing now. Okay. How about if you are looking for your next role, in public, that is? Go ahead.
I'm Maureen Carruthers. I spent 10 years in technical support for the company that makes WordPress.com, and I'm looking for something in that range. So I have a lot of leadership experience with technical folks, a lot of experience leading remotely, a lot of experience leading global teams, so with a diversity of thought people all over.
Thanks, Maureen. Anyone else? Lindsay?
I'm not looking for myself, but a lot of people in the Fort Wayne Tech community are looking for jobs, and that's anything from IT, help desk, to developer, to
Okay.
manufacturing, anything. We've got a pool, so
How do you manage that pool?
we're working on it.
Okay, so you're trying to program that a little bit more other than word of mouth? I mean, word of mouth is pretty effective, but
Right now, it's me pairing people
doing
together.
the ident thing.
But we're
Okay.
working on it.
All right, good. No, that's good. That's actually the next perfect segue. Thank you. You mind talking about Fort Wayne Tech a little bit and what kind of a group it is?
Yeah, so we're a nonprofit organization. There's quite a few folks here who are involved or on the board, and our mission is to retain tech talent in Northeast Indiana, and we do that through community, lifelong learning, career pathways, and innovation. Do you guys know that?
Yeah, sure, I'll say something.
Please.
Our website is fortwaynetech.org.
Yes.
Definitely go there and check it out. There's several events. If you know of any tech events in the area, let us know. We can get them on the events page. It's kind of a central spot for the Fort Wayne area. We also have a Discord that we're building to try to help with community involvement with each other and build a community there.
It's a great idea. Thanks. Matt, you want to talk about B-sides?
Sure. Matt Covey, I own and operate the Fort Wayne B-Sides. What it is, it's a local IT security conference. Again, very similar to Fort Wayne Tech. What we're trying to do is stop the brain drain from Northeast Indiana. Indiana Tech is a phenomenal school for cybersecurity specifically. We're trying to pair, students with places looking for jobs, but also learning from the local area, the local experts, not just the cybersecurity, but IT experts, and just have a good time. So there's a conference coming up Saturday, June 7th, looking for talkers, looking for sponsorships, and yeah, hopefully I see you there.
Awesome. Any other groups that people in this room should know about in the area?
I forgot to mention, we'll have a few internship
Oh.
opportunities at
Yeah.
Lake City. We'll have one in our cybersecurity team, one in our system administration team that's doing email, phone, servers, stuff like that, and then we'll have one on our PC help desk team. So I'll have 3 interns on my team, probably starting around May, but interviews will be happening soon. So I don't know how to get that information out to this group, but the opportunities will probably be in Warsaw though, so you have to drive.
If you would reach out to me, I can post that on the LinkedIn company page for your needs. Be happy to do that.
Sounds good.
All right. Last chance. All right. Sounds good. Next meeting, May 6th here. Chris Harvey, Brotherhood Mutual, will be speaking on coaching and how it can transform your leadership style. And we will have another person from Brotherhood Mutual. I think the details are going to get finalized very shortly on that. So 2 great speakers on May 6th. You can sign up for that at itleaders.org/Northeast Indiana, NE Indiana. It's the best way to get to that. The other meetings this year are August 19th and November 11th. So if you want to mark those on your calendar or take a picture, we will have those available and you can refer back to those if you wish. Tell your friends, tell the folks that you used to work with at other companies about this event if you think it might be valuable to them, or your soccer field and church IT friends. I think it's valuable as I said, to have the group bigger over time. I think it's useful. More opinions is often better in this sort of thing. I want to say thanks to Expedient, the company that employs me and lets me spend my time and their money putting these events on in multiple cities. Expedient is a data center firm with 15 data centers in 10 cities, and we're one of the biggest VMware clouds in the country. And we have a number of different products, including a new AI platform that is probably the most practical thing I've seen for AI in the last year. Everybody talks about AI these days. So anyway, I'm grateful. I think it's super cool that they are willing to give to the community first with no expectation of anything in return. More importantly, I think the type of vendor that we are is oftentimes the kind of vendor you want to work with. Today, our speakers, we have Aaron Petty from Sweetwater, and we have Jason Johnson from Sweetwater as well. Let me do the AV work here to get you switched over, and the meeting is yours.
I am definitely the type of presenter that likes to call on people and get more engagement. So I've given a few of you a heads up that I know that I may be calling on you, but just a heads up to pay attention and be on your toes because it's going to be a fun ride. So what I'd like to present to you today is about building confidence in our IT teams. I think a lot of times we focus on the hard skills that our IT teams work on and develop as they go throughout their career, but we sometimes lose sight of the importance of those soft skills, and confidence is one that I've really focused on with our team at Sweetwater. A little bit about me. My leadership journey, as Doug was kind of prompting us to think about, I was thinking about as I was putting this presentation together. My IT journey started about 14 years ago. Prior to that, I was in human services and sales. And then they used to have this website called Career Builder. I don't know, I'm sure some people in here have heard of that and are familiar. But they have this fantastic feature where you could just select apply all, and it would just send your resume out into the world, and you would have little or no control over where it went. So Roto-Rooter was one of those places that reached out to me. And I've shared this story with several people before, but I was in sales at the time, and the idea of being a plumber instead of sales was kind of appealing. But it actually was a BA position, a business analyst position, and support and training coordinator. So that kind of started me on my IT career. Traveled a lot, installed hardware, worked on proprietary software, and helped train our contractors all over the United States. My next move after I was burnt out on traveling was with a company called iRely. Brian Kay is here, and he was actually the guy that hired me at iRely, so it was a fantastic move and a very complex ERP system to learn. But while I was there, I was on the help desk team and then was promoted to manager of that team and director of that team as well for the local and offshore folks. After that, I was hired in at Brotherhood, and Chris Harvey was part of the hiring team there. So for that role, I was a solutions engineer and worked primarily on the Dynamics CRM, which was the first time in my IT career that I had something I could Google. So I was super happy about that opportunity, made my life a lot easier. And then Sweetwater had reached out to me and had just the role of a lifetime as a business analyst for them. And then I've just grown from there. So we've restructured a few times, which led to some promotions for me. So while at Sweetwater, I've held the titles of business analyst, delivery manager, director of delivery, and just last fall I was promoted to the VP of IT Shared Services, which quadrupled my team. So I had to learn quickly about my own confidence in that role and then how to bring that to my team. So those are a few of the titles that I've had professionally. Personally, I am a wish granter with Make-A-Wish. I've been doing that since 2016. It's a fantastic organization. And then Allen County CASA, I'm an advocate for them, and I have been for the last year. Other personal titles are daughter, sister, wife, mom, and my favorite, as of 5 years ago, Nana. So a few of the things that I want to focus on when it comes to building confidence in our teams, a lot of it revolves around how we recognize the strengths within the people that we're working with, overcoming challenges and how we navigate those for our teams. How are we responding in a time of crisis, and how are we setting the example and the tone for our teams on how to manage those situations? When we're empowering each team member, what do we know about them? How are we focusing on their strengths? And then the final thing is practical steps for building confidence in our teammates. So why does confidence matter in IT? Is there anybody that would like to give some answers there? Juwan, do you want to start? Why do you think confidence matters in IT?
If you're confident, well, it matters because if you're not confident, you will be fearful to make a mistake.
Love that. Fearful to make a mistake is what Juwan said, and I totally agree with that. That is one thing that I've enjoyed about my time with Brian, with Chris, with Jason, is they've all promoted a failure-friendly culture. I think that's a huge part of what we're doing in IT. If your developers and your teammates are afraid to fail, they're really going to hold back and be hesitant to share information. Like Doug was talking about, or I think somebody had mentioned, somebody that goes back and kind of really thinks through something. If you don't have a failure-friendly culture, they may never share those ideas with you, so it's a big loss. Maureen, did you have an idea?
Yeah, I think it's slow, that you're never going to know for sure. IT is too complex, there's too many variables, and while there's benefit in taking some time, like you don't want someone who's so confident that they never think about anything.
Yeah.
But without some confidence to say, this is the direction I think we should go, and a willingness, as you said, to put that out there, even if they're not sure yet that everyone else agrees with them, you're not going to get the best thinking on the table, or you're going to spend a lot of time trying to solve every problem when really, you're like, we've now solved 10 problems, only one of which we were ever going to have.
Yeah.
So being willing to be like, no, let's do this, and I have the confidence that we can handle it if it doesn't go.
Yeah, bingo. The best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time, right? Anybody else have anything to contribute? Yes?
If it is confidence and not hubris, you're more likely to recognize a mistake you made.
I like that. Yeah, definitely. So I broke it down into a few different sections here. Confident drives innovation and creativity, which is what I think Maureen was kind of focused on. Fosters collaboration and team cohesion. IT leads to higher performance, and confidence leads to higher performance and productivity. It enables us to tackle challenges and adapt to change, which again was kind of along the lines of what Maureen was talking about. If we have an opportunity for our teams to present ideas to us and talk through those things and just be an environment where they can feel focused and free to share, that's what's going to lead to all of these great things to developing the confidence in their team. So what makes our IT teams great? From an expertise standpoint, Jason, how many tech stacks and platforms do we have currently, technologies-wise, at Sweetwater?
Tons.
Yeah. What did we start with? What did you start with?
We started with probably 2 major tech stacks, PHP and a language called 4D. And I think since then, it wouldn't surprise me if it was well over 100.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 100 different technologies that we've worked with since 1979.
Oh, easily higher than that, but yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things I always say is when I started my career in IT 14 years ago, if I had gone to school for IT specifically, everything that I would have learned in school would have been outdated. So it really is important that we rely on each other to expand our expertise, learn from each other, and give our teammates and our people that are reporting to us an opportunity to teach us. I think some of the best things and the opportunities that go along with that are when you allow somebody to teach you something. I think Doug also said something about not being the smartest person in the room. Jason says that all the time, not to call you out.
That's totally true, yeah.
But it does. I mean, this is our CIO that's able to say and be vulnerable in that way and recognize that he has an opportunity to learn from people still, even at the position that he's in. The problem solving that goes along with that. We've developed our project management so much in the last 3 years and how we approach that and the problems that we're trying to tackle, that these are becoming more comfortable areas for our team to focus on. They know that if delivery's got this, they're going to follow these steps. So adding some clarity to the problem-solving process is another key piece. The collaboration we kind of touched on a little bit already. Ashley, you guys are phenomenal on your team with collaboration and really figuring out how to tackle these problems that come your way and develop really good solutions. Can you tell us a little bit about how your team goes about just brainstorming?
I think a lot of it is that they don't shoot off a message and wait for a reply. They will either get on the phone or they will get out of their seat, go find the people that need to be found, and just work it out in live conversation. I think that's been a big part of what makes my team successful. And then they also, all of them are confident in putting their ideas on the table. Everybody from my tech lead to my used to be intern, now part-time employee, all of their ideas are equally considered by everybody on the team. And I think that's a testament to all of them, to being willing to listen to all ideas and then consider them with equal weight and go forward with the best idea.
Yeah, I actually think that's a testament to you as well, because you've created that culture on your team where you have a senior developer, you have one of our most senior developers on your team and one of our most junior developers on our team, and you give them all equal voices, which is a huge part of that collaboration opportunity. Adaptability, this has become a big one. As I mentioned in the problem-solving process, how we're putting together our projects and organizing them, how are we adapting to the scope creeps? How are we as leaders navigating and presenting ourselves in a fashion that is not combative, is more accepting of those changes that come our way, and how we're going to incorporate that? And then finally, what's our commitment to the success of our teams? Are we committed to helping them develop personally and professionally? Are we aware of what their strengths are? How are we helping them and getting to know what some of these things are that are important to our teammates? What's our commitment to them? Because when we're committed to our teams, they're going to be committed to us as well. Any questions or feelings about that before we move on? Did you have one? No? Okay. Okay. So turning challenges into opportunities. Some of the challenges that I've seen over the course of the last 14 years are the tight deadlines. Brian, I know we had some pretty tight deadlines as far as when we were migrating our platform to the cloud. We had people that had deadlines to meet as far as their harvest times and when they were setting up their stores. So I've definitely dealt with some of that. Constantly evolving technology. We talked about that with Sweetwater, how much technology has evolved since the beginning of the company and how we combat that. Are we staying up to date? Are we getting together in meetings like this and understanding what's out in the world and how we can do better and learn from each other? And then the complex problem solving is another one that involves a lot of collaboration and that freedom to fail and that focus in our teams on how we're approaching the problem solving. So what are some ideas that we can do to overcome them? I mentioned earlier that providing clarity and kind of alleviates the uncertainty and creates a more confident environment for our teams. So strong communication and support within the team. How are we learning from setbacks? Do we take that failure and kind of dissect it? Do we take it and decide where we can learn more, do better? Brian also saw me fail pretty hard on some things with deleting data, and that's where I learned a begin trans statement. It was one of my first lessons, and a commit. And then leveraging each team member's strengths. Excuse me, I kind of talked about this before, But with my team, what I've learned to do at the beginning of each year is do a SWOT analysis with them. And not just a SWOT analysis overall, but just focused on what their goals are. So if they're interested in becoming a leader in the team, in the company, or down the road, what can we do to focus and prompt that thinking along the same lines? If they're interested in becoming a better teammate, if they want to become a better project manager, what prompts can I give them in their SWOT analysis so that we can really develop a goal that will help them achieve that in that year? And then staying resilient and focused on solutions. A lot of times, like Maureen was saying, you can get kind of tied down in the details of the problems without being focused on the solution. So once we understand and promote and champion what the solution is, our teammates will follow that and have confidence in that leadership. Anything to add there, Maureen?
This kind of goes with the last one, but what I've noticed is that in those challenging situations, sometimes just for human reasons, people can turn on each other, that it can feel like if you did your thing, we wouldn't be where we are. And if you can nip that in the bud, if you can help everybody sit, even like literally, on the same side of the table, so everyone is looking together at the problem, that a lot of stuff melts away. That it's not, because everybody, if you've got a great team, everybody cares a lot about getting things where they need to be. And that care can get misdirected without malice. And so a great leader can notice that before it's a problem and just subtly switch people to putting the care where it needs to go.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think it is important for us to be able to kind of have a view from the outside of what's currently happening on the team and think quickly so we can help navigate that.
Well, and you yourselves have to have done the internal work to not also be triggered.
Yes.
Because if you as a leader come in this area of, well, why didn't you do this and why didn't you do this and why, you are modeling the exact behavior you don't want to see on your team.
Yes, for sure. I know when I was working at Brotherhood under Chris's team, my supervisor there, Judd Johnson, used to say I had every look and feel of a duck because on the surface I was calm and collected, but paddling like hell under the water. And it was pretty accurate. He used to say that often, and at first I didn't quite get it, and I totally get it now. That's a great point. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else have something to share? Brian, did you want to comment on any of the tight deadlines that we faced and how we overcame that?
Blame sales.
Blame sales. We did that sometimes, for sure.
Yeah. I always say yes. I think it's, when you see team members align for tight deadlines, trying to figure out how to do the impossible, that's where you really see the success, or even like if you miss it by a little, you see that people grow together through that.
Yeah, great point. So building confidence from within. As I mentioned earlier, it is important for us to be aware of what our teammates are focused on, what they're interested in pursuing. How are we encouraging growth on the team? Are we having those conversations to understand what our teammates are looking for? As we've talked about at Sweetwater, our teammates can't depend on their directors and their managers to create their growth path. They have to come prepared and willing to put in the work to achieve that. So how do we help them start those conversations and focus on what they're interested in? One thing, as I mentioned, I use is the SWOT analysis to understand. Sometimes I'll focus on what the needs are of the company. Like one person on my team currently is pursuing her PMP certification. The project management, though Sweetwater hasn't adopted one methodology specifically, it's beneficial to her to understand what's greater out there, and we've been supportive of her in achieving that. Foster open communication. This is a big one. One thing that I have benefit in my role currently is since I've started as a business analyst, I've been able to cultivate relationships at an early stage there, and they've just continued to grow. So people have felt a level of comfort in coming to me and talking and really being open about what's happening with them at Sweetwater. We've had a lot of change, so I've been able to listen and then take some of those ideas and that feedback to our leadership team so we can talk through and come up with some solutions or some ideas, or at least just get it out in the open. Celebrating the wins. This is one that we've really been focused on as well. How are we recognizing the people that are doing the great things? We have individual acknowledgement, we have team acknowledgement, but what are some other ways that your companies are focused on celebrating the wins for your groups? Chris, do you have anything?
Celebrating wins is tough, I think. Yes, we probably, like many organizations, you know, we finish something and we do a pizza party or whatever. I think in IT, it's really, infrastructure projects are easier, but often it's hard to know when you're done, especially software. It's like, well, it's not done. When did we finish? We never finished it. It's still not finished. 10 years ago we put this in. So I think it's important just to focus on that and make sure that whether it's little things, big things that you're celebrating, even when it's not done. It's mostly done. It's almost done. At least it's in production, something, and continuing.
Well, I think it's like, you know, what was the goal though, right? So, you know, I operate every 90 days, right? We might have a strategic vision for a 2 or 3 year roadmap, but I think it's breaking it down into like 90-day increments, you know, so we can stay on track. So every week, my leadership team, we meet. And first thing we do is we talk around like, hey, what's going on with you guys? What's the best thing to happen to you this week? And then kind of go into some recognition. So we do that even if it's small, right? And if I hear something good, I'll just email that person and their manager. It could be in the department or outside the department, right? But it's just a good collaborative kind of spirit builder. And then the 90 days, right, says, hey, we might have network infrastructure projects. It's gonna be 12 to 18 months to finish it or whatever we define as finished. It's never finished. But if we break it down in these 90-day increments, we feel like we can at least cheer on the milestones,
Yes.
right? So it's around that. And again, it's not just a pizza party all the time. It might manifest itself in different ways.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's just, you know, being open to again, celebrating wins in different ways and figuring out a way to kind of foster that culture.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, Jason.
I think one of the things we did quite some time ago was, and I did it up to the executive team, was we did this, I called it redundancy at work. And so it's really interesting, like you have network operations team, we have 4 internet connections, full BGP, like we haven't had an internet outage in like 10 years. And yet we have internet outages every month, right? And so it's like, how do you actually communicate upwards and give the team those wins of saying like, here's things that you guys never experienced because we have a great team, because we have people that are ahead of the game, because we had good monitoring, because somebody thought ahead on an 18-month infrastructure project. It not only builds a great story of what the team's doing and the value they're providing, but it also allows a little bit bigger cone of grace when you actually do have an outage on something because they see 10 good things and they go, oh, here's one we missed. That just happens, versus kind of the opposite, which is if you never talk about that, it's like, oh, we had an outage again. You know, what have you done for me lately?
Yeah. Ashley, you had something?
When I started on my team a year ago, they were working in a Kanban style and they worked really well for them. They really liked it. And I was challenged to shift my team to a sprint style. And so we were discussing that. And one of the things that surprised me was my team, one of my tech lead said, you know, in the Kanban style, the cards come and they just keep coming and there's no end to the cards. Whereas with the sprint style, you have that every week, every 2 weeks, you have a sense of completion. We actually got something done. Because, right, software's never done. Somebody said to me, software is done like grass is mowed, right? It's just always needs some maintenance. But even just building in those regular milestones to celebrate what you've done, whether that's every couple of weeks, whether that's quarterly, just making sure that you're celebrating the wins along the way.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. And thank you, Jason. One thing that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just to add one more level to that, I think also it's important to recognize how each individual contributor likes to receive praise.
That's a great point.
Some people like public praise, some people like private praise, some people like the pizza party, some people don't like the pizza party. So
Yeah.
I think as a leader, it's also investing the time to know your team members
Absolutely.
and recognize them in the ways that they want to be recognized.
That's a great point, definitely. Did you have something?
That was one of the things I was gonna say too, is that, and you can do that early in your one-on-ones. Like I have a set of questions that I ask right away, and that is one of them. How do you like to receive recognition? And sometimes you have to read between the lines a little bit, because some people have been, either because of their personality or because of their culture, have learned to say, oh, I don't need it. Anyway, there's nuance of it, but asking people is really good.
Yeah, I agree with that. Great point, Ashley.
And there are people who are very uncomfortable with receiving it, but are still need it, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Are you thinking of someone in particular? We have a guy on Ashley's team that's won like every personal recognition in the last 3 weeks, and he is one of those people that does not really love the spotlight. So it's been kind of fun.
I was walking through the hallway the other day and I said, "Congratulations, John," and he goes, "It wasn't me, it was the whole team." That's a true leader. That's
It's been pretty fun. Yeah, those are all great points. One thing that I've really focused on, because it is a team effort sometimes it's an individual contributor, writing personal notes for the people that work on my team. Just recognizing, hey, I noticed that you did this in this meeting and that really made all the difference. That was a huge impact to this project and how we're talking about it or how we're thinking about it. When's the last time, raise of hands, somebody wrote a note to somebody at work, a physical note? Love it. I was surprised at the impact of that. I kind of just got a whole bunch of note cards. I am one of those people that thinks thank you notes are kind of ridiculous when I say thank you myself, but I've since learned the importance of seeing that physical intention behind writing the note. So I would encourage, if you haven't thought about it, consider doing that. Foster open communication. Again, to what Maureen was saying, I love what you were talking about as far as asking for how they want to receive feedback. I'm sorry, recognition. I've asked how they want to.
Well, feedback is also it's one
Yeah,
thing, the other
yeah.
depends on
So if I recognize something where I feel like you can do some improving, how do you want me to communicate that? Do you want to email first that, hey, I want to talk to you about this, or should I just stop you afterwards? Or if it's something that I have a question on and something that's positive, how can I get your feedback in a healthy way? One thing that goes along with that too is kind of a code of excellence for your team and how you're approaching that so that everybody has the same understanding. Does anybody have that in place right now? Doug?
We do, and one of our watchwords is bad news early is good news.
I like that. Bad news early is good news.
A lady named Lou Russell taught me that many years ago, and it's meaningful, right?
Yeah.
If we have more time to act on a problem, we can often turn it into something great.
Yeah. Well, and it doesn't become the fire either. You have some time to actually think about it and not be so reactionary. Support risk-taking, we kind of discussed that a little bit already with that failure-friendly environment and how we're approaching the lessons learned after that. And then finally, the mentorship. I think Doug actually mentioned that in his opening too, of how important it is to have mentors, even as leaders. How are we leaning on each other to get some feedback on best practices? What's working for you? How are you approaching this? That's been really helpful for me as I've grown in my role at Sweetwater, is seeking out not only IT mentors, but leaders around the company that I can find out more of what their focus is and how I can help them. Any other questions with that? Does anybody have mentorship programs in their companies currently? Sweetwater, yeah?
Steel Dynamics too.
Steel Dynamics. Is that solely within IT or is that across the company?
Various parts of the company.
Okay. Gotcha. Ours is just in IT right now. I've heard rumblings that they're considering using our model throughout Sweetwater, but it's been a wildly successful program. Eric's ran it for the last, I was going to say 2 or 3 years, yeah. And it really pairs up just people that are, we have a list of things that is our bio, and people can kind of see who they want to get matched up with and what they're looking to focus on during that time. And currently, I think, is it a 3-month commitment? Yeah, Yeah, so it's been great because you get to meet people from all over the department too that you don't encounter all the time. So how are we building confidence daily? Am I doing okay on time?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
You can talk as long as you want.
Okay. Setting clear goals of, do we have a focus each day on what our teams are working on? Somebody mentioned, I think you did, about having that weekly meeting or at the beginning of the week and asking your team, hey, what are we focused on this week? What were some wins from last week? So that everybody's on the same page as far as what you're tackling for the week ahead and beyond. Provide and seek out constructive feedback. I think as leaders, this is something that doesn't always come as naturally to us. We're very good at dishing out the feedback, but for asking for it, I think sometimes can be a struggle. Does anybody have a best practice on how they ask for feedback from their team in your one-on-ones or as a group? Juwan, did you have anything?
I mean, I usually, in my one-on-ones, or just in any, when I review season, I always ask my team members, like, hey, what can I do better to help you grow in this position? What can I help you do better? I mean, give me the raw and uncut. Since I'm giving you the raw and uncut, tell me if I'm not doing a good job, let me know so I can at least get something I can help and start to build myself to help you get better.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Ashley, I think you had your hand up. Did you, or Maureen? Okay.
One thing is that I always ask, after we've sort of had an idea or whatever, what have I missed? What haven't we talked about that needs to be talked about? But the other piece is that you have to be excellent at receiving even poorly delivered feedback. If someone gives you feedback one time and you're defensive and you have power, you will never hear from that person again. And so you personally have to be in a position where you can take feedback as a gift, even when it comes sort of wrapped in spiky packages.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, that's been a challenge that I've had to include as part of my agendas on one-on-ones because it's just not something I really think about. Of course, I want feedback, but I'm looking to my leaders for that feedback, where I should be working with my teams and the people that I interact with on the daily to get some constructive information on how I can improve as a leader for them or how I can improve their life working for me. We kind of talked about the celebrate progress and encourage collaboration. Investing in development. That's one thing that we've been focused on at Sweetwater as well, is how do we give people the tools to continue leveling up as technology improves, changes. What are you guys doing now? We've focused on Pluralsight at Sweetwater. Different people on our teams have access to that. We have licenses that we distribute and give them kind of free reign on that. But I'm curious, we've looked at some other platforms of what other people are using currently in their IT departments. Yes?
We use, it used to be called IT Pro TV. I think it's called ACI Learning now.
Okay.
It's a really solid platform.
Okay, Matt, I might have to get with you after this to learn more about that, because that's one I haven't explored yet. I think I was talking to Chris earlier. We just had Workday implemented, so we're developing an LMS there as well, but something that our developers can use and kind of have a growth path to would be fantastic. What are some other ideas? Yes?
I think one of the challenges that we have is that in the 80s and 90s, we had an environment that really encouraged exploration, innovation, growth, and all those types of things, and it kind of contracted. And I think we have to be really intentional about helping our teams and our staff to take the time to expand and stretch and grow. And I don't think that happens enough now, today, because we are pressured to produce in such a tight window.
Yeah.
So that's something we have to be intentional about.
Yes, I agree with that. Thank you for sharing that. Also, how are we investing in ourselves? Chris mentioned he was pursuing a coaching certification. As leaders, how are we leveling up our game? When I was promoted last fall, one of my first things that I did was enroll in a program that was called Iron Sharpens Iron through Proverbs University, and it was about women in leadership. And it was a phenomenal experience for me because it really opened my eyes on some of the blind spots that I had. And then the mentorship program that I've worked with Sweetwater on as well has been really effective. So how are you as leaders leveling up your game? Are you pursuing any kind of education or continuing learning that the rest of the group should know about? Is anybody pursuing anything?
I'm here.
No? Yeah, good. Del? Yeah.
This past summer, I finished my bachelor's. I cashed out for an associate's during COVID. I've been in a role, not directly in leadership, but I've been in a leadership adjacent role for 13 years, 14 years. So school was kind of an afterthought for me. I was already in a position of being an office manager and in management, IT adjacent, and it took me 8 years off and on to finish my bachelor's, but I'm really proud I finished it and excited to get more certifications and stuff like that to harden my knowledge.
Yeah, great. Good for you. Congratulations. That's awesome. Yeah, I would love to hear more on how this group is developing. Yes, Doug.
Aaron, we used to run a boot camp of 20-hour 4-session Leadership 101 course out in the Indy market. COVID threw a grenade in that program, and the lady, the bad news early is good news lady, is the one who taught it, and she's now retired. What we have found, we've explored a couple of options on that, and what we're exploring right now is a virtual program that's more modular in its style so that you could consume bite-sized chunks of leadership. I'm working with a team of 2 ladies in Indy right now to explore that. So that may be a consumable form of leadership training beyond coming to a community like this. More to come on that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that update. And like Jason said, you're here. So that is a good step in the right direction, that you do want to develop your skills through networking or learning best practices. So I think that's another important piece of that. So our confidence is what's driving our team's success. Our team is capable and resilient. They're all filled with potential, obviously, because they have great leaders. Confidence in our abilities is the key to unlocking even greater success. Confidence is not perfection. Confidence is recognizing strength and how that affects the team overall. Together, we'll continue to innovate, solve problems, and achieve our goals. And finally, the call to action is let's continue to build on those strengths. Let's continue to recognize and support one another and really be the example that we want for our teams to live up to. Are there any questions? I know we kind of wrapped it up quickly there, but Jason needs to have his full half hour. Another call to action I'll just call out is Brian Kay actually was the one that turned me on to this group. And I reached out to Doug and I said, hey, Doug, I love this group, but where are all the ladies? And he said, why don't you present? So be careful what you ask, Doug. He will put it to action. But thank you all for your time. I appreciate it. I appreciate the engagement especially. It's been really helpful for me to understand where you're at and things that I can pay attention to as I'm continuing to grow in my leadership role. So thank you.
I wanted 2 ad hoc things here real quick. I said this to Dell earlier, and it kind of struck me it's applicable to my actual talk, but if I told you guys like I was going to Parkview after this and I was going to have my first brain surgery ever, like how would that make you feel? I got a guy laughing down here. Dell said, where are your 12 years of experience? Right? And yet, sometime in the next couple of weeks, somebody in this room, or definitely somebody in Fort Wayne, is going to promote an individual contributor to a manager overnight. They're going to congratulate them and send them on their way. And it's just as close to brain surgery, or, you know, we're all in the psychology business, whether we want to be or not. As me saying I'm going to go be a brain surgeon, just wrap your head around that. Like, what are you doing to help accelerate those leaders and make sure that they have the right tools to be successful? I'm a big believer in mentorship and coaching I'll share a story real quick with you. I had a coach, my very first coach, mentor, was very impactful to my life. And when I was in my early Sweetwater career, we had about 7 or 8 employees that worked for me at the time. I was talking to him. He said, like, show me your plans. Show me your plans for next week. Show me your plans for the next couple months. I'd love to see how you're planning. And he was trying to get me to SMART goals. But I said, oh, I don't plan. And he said, why? I said, oh, because I work for this founder named Chuck, and he comes in on Monday morning, and we all have a meeting, and he decides what we're going to do for the week, and that's kind of how we run the company. And so I can't plan because he doesn't plan. He doesn't tell me what he's going to talk about on Monday. We just kind of figure it out. And he goes, really? And I said, yeah. And he goes, so you don't give plans to any of the people that work for you? Nope, don't. He says, okay. He says, can we agree for a minute that for that Chuck's going to come in and blow up like 30% of your week? And me, being a really immature person, was like, no, 30%? That's crazy. He's probably 5% max, maybe 10% on the worst week. And he looked at me, he goes, so you're telling me you're not willing to plan 95% of the tasks in your week because some guy might change 5% of it? And I remember it was just one of those coaching unlock moments where I looked at him and I said, well, Pat, you make me feel like a real big idiot when you say it like that. You got to get a coach. You got to have a mentor. So a little bit about me, if you don't know me. I was born and raised in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Graduated Homestead High School, information systems degree. It's actually main focus is in networking, so I'm a big packet capture guy. Left for the U.S. Navy when I graduated high school. Did a whole bunch of things in flight weapon systems and information technology and a bunch of cool stuff, and then joined Sweetwater in 2013, and that's been a wild ride. Today is actually my 12th anniversary there. Thanks. So what that looks like is when I started, I was the 6th person in IT, and I started on the help desk. Our first year, we did $230 million worth of business, and this year, we have 186 people in IT, $1.7 billion. There's not a system in that building that we haven't replaced, ripped out multiple times over those years. The growth has just been a very, very, very wild ride. Personally, my wife Kelsey, my daughter Riley, and my son Logan are the most important things in the entire world to me, as I'm sure your family is to you. In the last couple years, I've become a private pilot. And that's been hugely inspirational for me. It's kind of the mashup of calmness in the air in combination with a whole bunch of planning and avionics and geeky tech stuff at the same time. And I'm a geek through and through. I have a 42U rack in my basement, big home lab. I got multiple Kubernetes clusters. My wife always complains that our printer never works. I go live it at home for sure. A couple pictures, actually, these were taken from early January up in the plains. One of the most beautiful things I love about going up in the plain is when it's grazy and when it's overcast and gray down here. Oftentimes it's a really thin layer, and you get to go up there and realize that the world is full much more of sun than it is from grayness. So, hey, up front, my presentation really is going to be focused on what doors you're closing, what are you delegating, and how are you preparing to open the next door. So, everybody wants growth, but have you ever considered yourself unpromotable? Does anybody know what that means? What makes you unpromotable?
Too valuable in your current role.
Too valuable in your current role, right? Don't get trapped. You got to move upstream. You got to treat the actual problem instead of the symptoms. Everybody knows that classic IT person who's like, we'll just reboot it again, right? Keep moving on. That stuff catches up with you. How are you looking at lead measures versus lag measures? Does everybody understand lead measures over lag measures? Right? Lag measure is when I step on the scale in the morning. Lead measure, how many calories am I taking in every day? Right? What are the actions that I'm going to take are going to output that? And the other reminder here before we move on this slide is that we all have 168 hours. No matter how busy you are or anything else, how much money you have, etc. We all have the same amount of hours in every single week as each other. It's the even playing field. There's a lot of pride in firefighting. Does anybody feel like they have a firefighting culture at work? It's fascinating. Dell raised his hand.
Common in IT.
It's common in IT. Do you know why it's common?
You're a hero.
It's a hero's mentality. Exactly, right? No one gets credit for the server that never failed because you had a monitoring alarm go off at 2 o'clock in the morning and somebody woke up for it. It's incredible. I would say, like, in my career, I've met people that are addicted to it. It's all they know. Does that resonate with anybody? See some rescuer. One of the hardest things for me was like two truths. I like to think upstream so much that, like, you know, when there was an outage, I'm the guy who like looked at it. Actually had this happen. I had a mentor that I was working with at the time that helped me level set it. But a team had been up until like 2 o'clock in the morning. They're working on this problem. The next day, everybody wakes up. They're heroes, right? And I went and checked their backlog, and they had this deprioritized card that had been in existence for like 6 months that would have prevented that issue. And my brain was like, you can't be heroes. You can't be an arsonist and the firefighter, right? It doesn't work like that. Well, there can be two truths there, right? You can be a hero because you stayed up fixing it, and you also can be somewhat at fault because you didn't prioritize it or move upstream to fix it. And sometimes that just happens. But, you know, I would be thinking about the two truths aspect. So I'm going to give you some ideas to talk about here. Time multipliers. Does anybody know what that means? Start thinking in time multipliers. What am I going to do today that's going to gain me more time in the future? I think there's a great XKCD skit out there that's like engineers will spend this much time to save them, you know, this much time over the haul. But I think about that all the time. Like, what are the things that I can do that will save me time? And sometimes it's will save me 10 seconds, but allow me to remain focused. So I wrote some of them down. A keyboard shortcut. How many of you have a custom keyboard shortcut you program for something? Right? Sounds silly, mail rules. I have hundreds and hundreds of mail rules. My ops teams get so mad at me because my mailbox will get messed up, and I'll be like, they're like, we know it's one of your rules. I'm like, I don't think so. I've gone through them. They're like, how do you know? You have hundreds of them. Like, how are you just filtering out the noise? How are you automating away that, hey, I'm going to file this in a folder. I'm going to do this. Like, that's a huge, huge, huge lift. I created a Power Automate relatively recently that's pretty cool. It's just a folder in my inbox that says unsubscribe, and when I hit it, Power Automate picks it up and responds back to the person and says, I have no interest in your service. It's a little bit nicer than this, but I have no interest in your service. Please remove me from your list. Right now, everywhere I'm on the go, file it in an unsubscribe folder, leave it alone. I can't tell you how much time I think that has saved me, as all of our mailboxes are full of salespeople, you know, hitting us up over every little thing, but those tiny little things. I have another Power Automate I recently did. I produce a weekly report to the CEO. Does anybody else have a weekly report that's due to their boss? Right? Power Automate wakes up on Monday, creates a draft email for me, puts the subject line perfectly right, lays in the bullets exactly how I want them, sends me an email telling me my email's in the draft folder. So when I wake up on Monday morning, I'm like, oh, that's right. I can start automatically just adding stuff to that email as I go along through the week, and then press send on Friday. That Power Automate took me forever to figure out. Embarrassing amount of time. When Aaron says I'm the dumbest person in IT, we give a Wonderlic score. I say we give a Wonderlic test to everybody, and I have the lowest score out of everybody. I'm pretty proud of that. I say that all the time. Like, hey, I am literally the least smart person out of all of you. I hope we don't hire anybody lower than me. Delegation. I don't know how many of you think you're doing delegation right, but the vast majority of people do it wrong. I know I do it wrong all the time. It's been probably one of the hardest skills I've had to pick up. Who feels like they're a really great delegator? Nobody? Oh, go ahead.
Because I just started my job.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's really tough to delegate if you've grown up within a company. So you being at where you are since 2013, right? 6 people. 283 million in sales to 1.7 billion, whatever the slide said. And it's really hard for you to do that because it's a snowball effect, right? You just keep gaining these responsibilities. You understand everything probably around how your operation works. Yeah. So for you in your position, I would say it's very, very difficult. I'm 90 days in, so everything's already delegated. The team's already running. Nice. So I'm picking and choosing what I want to figure out what I want to do, leaving the rest to the team. So it's, anyway, being a great delegator is easy when you're in a new place.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. You know, one of the biases I have, I don't know if you guys do, but oftentimes there is something, somebody comes to me and they say, hey, we have this really old script, nobody knows anything about it. It pops in my head, I go, I should have documented that. I should have wrote some training around that. I could delegate it if I wrote some training around it. I'll just jump in there and fix it.
But that goes back to the automation. It's the same thing. The delegation also requires all of this work up front,
Yep.
and then it's faster. But for some reason, we're much more willing to say, I'm gonna write 14 tests so that I never have to write these 2 words again, than we are to say, I'm gonna sit down and write this documentation so that I can delegate it.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same process. One we're very willing to do and one we're very not.
Yeah. The other piece of it is, what about just going and saying, hey, I know there's no documentation about that. Let me tell you everything I know in the next 3 minutes. I'm right here. If you need something, don't feel bad about reaching out. Draft the documentation. I'll QA it for you. In all those cases, I did less work than the person I gave the work to. Go ahead, Chris.
I think for me, look, forcing myself to delegate has helped. So I find that the best way for me to delegate is to overcommit on the things that I know I'm supposed to be doing and interacting with other executives or those kind of things. The things of my new job, not my old job, and then I have to because I just don't have enough time.
Yep.
Because I purposely overcommit.
Yeah, for sure. I love that you said something in there too, leading the witness a little bit, but the things that you're supposed to do, as technologists, as people who come from a technical background, it's really easy to get stuck in that trap of going, well, I'm a leader, I know I need to be working with other peers in the business, I know I need to be involved in this project, but somebody just asked me to fix this script, right? You're back to that hero's mentality. I can do that, it's tangible, it feels good. Building relationships, depending on who you are as a human being, can be a forced trait, right? And we haven't really just talked about like task delegation. We haven't even really talked about like ownership delegation, which is a whole nother level of saying like you own this. Go ahead, Mark.
Delegation for me has been transformative. I realize that when people are coming for me for decisions, I want to be in a position of power to make a decision. But also, it's really good for your team to show that you trust in them to make a decision process and that mistakes are okay. And I'm here to coach you through that. Maybe there's a different approach next time. But it gives them the opportunity to develop their skills, do a little bit more, and then take some off your plate.
Yeah. Pass on.
I've enjoyed delegation.
Yeah.
And I think too, this goes back maybe a little bit to what Aaron was talking about as well, is what wins are we stealing from those people we oversee, right? Or what growth are we stealing from them?
Yeah.
Well, we do that. We don't oftentimes think about it that way, right? But we, in essence, are doing that.
Yeah. The two things that I hear the most common are the person's not going to do it the way I want them to do it, so I'm not going to delegate it, or I delegated it to them, but I didn't get the right follow-up. I didn't get the right, they didn't tell me when it was done, and I wanted to know when it was done. Like there's some sense of loss of control in that process, right? And that's the easiest answer in the world. You delegate it that way, right? Like, hey, I'd like to spend a little time on a whiteboard with you, and let's talk about how you're going to do it, or you're going to architect it if you think that it's that way, or what. I'd like you to check in with me about this every day. I'd like an email at the end of the day. Here's how you can work with me best, right? Clifford?
Yeah, you just covered it, because I think one of the challenges about delegating is releasing the appropriate level of authority, and that comes through clear communications of the expectations along the way. So once you have that, then you should feel freer to delegate because you've had that conversation. So.
Absolutely. I believe if you become a great delegator, you'll be like top 10% of all leaders, like just with that one single skill. Huge, huge, huge unlock.
There's an emotional component to that delegating on both sides of the equation too that we often don't address.
Yeah.
Right? It's hard for you to let go. It's often hard for the person to take it because they feel risk.
Yeah.
So addressing it, I think, can get that out in the open and solve some of the problem.
Yeah. Even to your point, have you ever not delegated something because you were actually really technically excited about it? Like you actually wanted to do it yourself, right? What a frustrating feeling to be like, oh, we've had projects that have happened as we've grown our teams where I've literally been like, I've been thinking about that for like 5 years. I'm so glad we get to do it. And then you get FOMO basically, right? You're just like, hey, I want to be in that. You can get vulnerable with the person and say, I really want to be close to this one. I would really love to be a thought partner with you on it. I would really love to own part of this, conversation with you. But as a coach, as someone on the sidelines, you're playing football, right? quarterback's in charge when they're out on the field. Coach is on the sidelines. You don't see the coach run out into the middle of the field. Call timeout every once in a while, but it's about all you got. What are some other good stuff about delegation that you guys have learned? Ashley?
Something that I've had to realize is that when I'm delegating, I need to be really clear about what's important to me on the outcomes on, you know, this is what I'm delegating to you, this is what I expect, and that's usually some sort of deadline, some sort of communication back to me. But I needed to stay away from the how, because that's really annoying from a manager. I don't want to micromanage them. And I also want to leave them some room to be creative and grow and figure some things out themselves. But if I forget to communicate, hey, this is what I expected in terms of communication and deadline, I get really anxious, and that's when I start inserting myself again, like, hey, have you done that? But also I don't want to be annoying and asking, have you done that? And just being clear up front with expectations just sets a better tone for actually transferring that ownership instead of trying to transfer the task but still maintaining oversight.
Aaron?
Yeah, I think another key piece of the delegation is how much it improves that autonomy for your team. I think that's something that I've had to recognize. I think somebody said that, you know, there's a feeling, Doug, I think you mentioned there's a risk involved in that, but how do we hand off that risk too and allow that person, like Ashley, you're saying, come up with their own solution and how they're going to tackle it and champion that for them. So I think it's a great opportunity to build the confidence on your teammates.
Absolutely. I love what Doug said earlier. I'm going to use that, but you know, bad news early is good news, right? And delegation. I know every person in this room has probably delegated something, and their person they gave it to came up to them 5 minutes before it was due and explained that they were struggling with a problem for the last 3 weeks straight, and you're going, oh, geez, I wish you would have let me know. I could have helped, right? There's a little bit of discomfort in the idea that you're ultimately responsible for it. If it goes well, you get no credit, and if it goes poorly, you get all the blame, right? But that's just kind of part of the gig, and I think accepting that psychologically can help with some of those anxieties. We got anything else on delegation?
I think when you delegate things to, you might have been doing it for 5 years, right? Or whatever. And now this person's expected to do it after a 10-minute discussion you may have had with them. So I think documentation is important. You mentioned that. I think also making sure that the employee understands that, hey, do it this way, but if you identify anything that could optimize this process, that could optimize the workflow or make it easier, having that, you know, openness and that dialogue with you to say, hey, this is what I'm seeing after doing this process for 2 months. I think that's also very healthy.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
creates an innovation mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. A process improvement mindset. Yep. Great. So this is the next thing. I love this one. I'll ask you guys. I've done this with probably 100 people easily who have come to me and they said, like, I just don't have enough time in my day. I don't know where it's all going. You know, I'm frustrated. I'm not getting any of my goals done. And the number one thing I say is, like, let's write out your goals on a whiteboard. Okay, we write out our goals on a whiteboard, and then I'm gonna look at your calendar. I'm gonna say, your calendar says you're involved in these 10 projects. Your goals say you're involved in these. You want to get these 10 projects done, right? Like, are you actually inspecting where you're spending your time? Are you auditing yourself? Calendar alignment is really, really, really hard. We have the things we want, and we tend to just kind of drift away from them over time. It's probably the number one thing I dig into when I work in a mentorship coaching relationship with somebody. Who has experienced this? How many of you think your calendar will reflect where you actually want to be this year? Good for you, Bob.
I've run into the same thing you have.
Yeah.
So I'm very intentional about what is on my calendar.
It's hard, isn't it?
It is very hard.
It's hard because you have to say no. It forces you to say no to things. Who else feels
And
like?
the opposite side too, it forces you to block what you need, right? To make the time to put it on your calendar. So
Yeah, totally. Who else has got some good lessons on this? All right, I'll give you one. So this is something I do about every 3 months. This is an Excel workbook. I lay out the week. I did this last time in September. I laid out everything in 15-minute increments. How many of you have actually done a real-life time study on yourself? Okay. Go ahead.
Not probably to your level of detail, but I'd like to go back and either look at a week or a month and to see where time was spent to make sure that I've got the right things going on.
Yeah. There's an old saying, right, that we underestimate what we can get done in an hour or a day, and we way overestimate what we can get done in a year. This is a great gut check for this. I hate these weeks. I really do. I hate when I force myself to do this. It's very hard because you got to get really honest, but I literally just go through and block things out. And you can see in red here, I don't know what happened to that 15 minutes. I really don't. I went back in my day and said, oh crap, I lost that. Laying this over top of your calendar, did you actually attend the meetings you thought you were going to attend? Are you actually creating the space? What are you doing with your downtime? My calendar has maybe one 20-minute block free. I'm probably just going to be exhausted during that 20 minutes and sit around and do nothing or check email or whatever else. I've pulled this up before and I've been like, wow, I've been sitting here doing email for 2 hours. So this is super, super powerful in aligning your time with where you want to be and where you want to go, and finding what are the repetitive things that maybe you're doing. I've had, I'll get to you in a second, Chris, but I've had several times that I've had someone come up and I've realized in the course of the week they've asked me 5 or 6 questions for a half hour, every day about something different, about the same thing. And I don't say that badly, but in this particular case, the person actually was struggling with something completely different and they were trying to get touch points with me. It's like, oh, let's go spend some time with them. Let's go figure out what's going on in their world. And I hate to say why they're bothering me, but why I'm giving up this time to them that's not aligned with where I want to go, and what's happening with the leadership and managers and projects in their world kind of down there that's not causing them to go to the right place.
Yeah, I was just going to reinforce what good counsel this is. That, it took me a long time to realize that, obviously, the CEO, the CFO, they're running their life from their calendar. And if you look around, generally, the people one layer above you in the organization are doing a lot better job at their calendar management than you are. It's just absolutely a skill that you have to have as you move up. And one of the ways you can help yourself advance is better manage your calendar.
Yeah. How many of you feel like you're yes people? Yeah, I definitely do. I feel like there should be a lot more hands. Most people in IT get to a leadership position because they say yes. It's this gnarly thing that we do in IT is like to say no to things, right? That leads to this problem. And you're not a super person. We all are super, but at the end of the day, there's only 168 hours.
Jason, do you have a belief on what's your maximum? Is it 90% of your day, or do you feel like, this is a template, right? This is what you're aiming at. Do you think that, practically speaking, it's 80% or 90%? You can actually map and occupy?
No, I'd love to be closer to 50%. I would love to have 50% free time every day and 50% calendar time. What I tend to do is go through this cycle where that gets to an unhealthy spot. When it gets to an unhealthy spot, then I do a time study. Then I sit down, I review my calendar and figure out where am I going, and then I try to rearrange everything on my calendar as best I possibly can to try to kind of create a flow or realign against where I'm at and try to get back to a 50-50 balance. And it has ebbs and flows around, for me personally, around board meetings and just other big events where it's a little bit more than I want it to be meeting-wise. And I also find out that I get booked in a lot of hour meetings that end 30 minutes or 35 minutes long, and you can't let that time evaporate away from you. And at a place like Sweetwater, it's probably the worst it's ever been for me. And when I was in the government and you had a desk and you're in classified spaces and you had 5 people that worked around you and it was hard to leave and it was hard to go, it was different. And at Sweetwater, I can wander out to the Downbeat Diner and grab a bag of Skittles and stand there and talk to 10 people for, as long as I want, and it feels really good. So that same superpower that Sweetwater has with its hyper collaborative environment for someone like me can also be a kryptonite. Any other stories around calendar management at all? Who has a good calendar hack?
I just did a workshop basically all about like productivity, and one of the things I did was color blocking on my calendar, where it's not necessarily the task itself, but it's a task theme that I assign colors to, and I fit those particular tasks in that time block. And that's how I fill out my schedule, and it looks a lot like that.
Do you ever time constraint yourself? Do you ever like set a timer or like say like, I'm gonna go do this for only this amount of time?
Yeah, I talked about the Pomodoro technique with the 25 minutes on and then 5 minutes off.
Yeah.
So
Do you feel like that's helpful?
I do, yeah.
Does anybody else do that?
I time box to
Yeah.
achieve the same idea.
I found for me learning and reading, that's like a really great way. If I want to learn something or research something, that time boxing that specifically is a great way not to become distracted by the next Outlook pop-up or whatever. Because I love to learn and read, but sometimes that's a forced trait for me, actually sitting down and focusing on it and getting started. That can be hard.
I was going to add, and that's an excellent point. We were doing the Working Genius, no, excuse me, not Working Genius. Genius, no, I'm just going to come to me today. The habits.
Atomic habits.
Atomic habits,
Habits.
thank
There
you.
you go.
We just did it, and then my mind slipped the blank. But one of the things about setting up an environment that removes some of those distractions, so you talk about time boxing for maybe some education or anything else like that, and removing the things that always kind of ink at that, like your phone and the alerts or the notifications or not being in the same room with your computer or things like that, that will help eliminate some of those things that nick at or nibble at those times that you set aside.
Yep. Ashley?
I like to block out times where I need to do specific tasks, especially if they're deep thought tasks. And one of my favorite tricks for Outlook is that you can reply to an email with a meeting invite and then just delete the person off of there, so it's just a meeting invite to yourself, and then that takes all the information from the email that you need to focus on and respond to and deep thought, whatever, and then keeps that in that meeting invite and then blocks it off on your calendar so that you can actually sit down and respond to it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an awesome hack. Yeah.
I think one other thing too is just knowing what types of work at different times during the day you're good at. Sometimes it's like, I don't know, if you're at these times, or these are when I can, really, process things, and just sort of knowing what times of day, different, modes you need to be in, where you kind of excel at those.
Yeah, I think I 100% echo that. A lot of times when I do my time study and I rearrange my calendar, I'm looking to create some sort of flow. And I've experimented with lots of different things. I used to think that stacking all my one-on-ones in one afternoon would be the best way to just flow. That's in a huge emotional burden. And so, I do one a day about the same time across the week. Those types of things where you think about what's that flow. Or even back, we have a fairly large campus, like even back to, can I help figure out whatever's going on with the rooms so that I'm not leaving my office and running across the campus and then back to my office and back and forth and back and forth. For two reasons. One, because I just simply hate it. And then two, it feels inefficient. And then the other reason is because every time I walk across the campus, I know somebody's going to hijack me for something, right? Yeah, hallway meeting on that. And so you can try to limit that exposure and create flow, and then have a free half hour where you can wander the hallways and talk to people. That downtime is, I think, some of the best use of your time as a leader to kind of create those natural interactions with your team, and get into deep thought. So, hey, my last thing is have a system. And this has been like kind of my personal journey. I don't know about you guys, but it seems like every year I'm like, I hate my to-do app. I'm going to throw it away. I'm going to go research what all the best to-do apps are that exist. I'm going to spend all this time converting over to the new to-do app. Like 6 months to a year later, I'm right back in the same boat. Does that resonate with anybody? What I've learned about myself is that I really love the idea of getting really organized, and I love the idea of a better way of work, and I love the idea of tracking all my tasks. And what I've come to learn in the last 3 years is you just gotta freaking do it. At the end of the day, you just have to have a system, you have to keep it simple, and you have to religiously use it. And you will be wildly successful because you won't forget things. I never trust my brain. I trust myself the least out of anybody in my life, and I think that's the way to do it. That's the reason to delegate. That's the reason to write down everything that comes your way. But I would just hyper encourage you guys to have a system. I have an app right now called Godspeed, which is pretty cool. It's very, very basic, very inexpensive, but it's just a task list. That's it. Who else has got a great system they use? Bob, what's your system?
I use a calendar.
Yeah, no, for real.
Literally everything you need to do, if you put
Yeah.
it as Google, you need space in your calendar, and if you don't have space in your calendar, then you're not going to do it.
100%. Yep. Calendars.
Well, I use OneNote as pedestrian as that might be.
Yeah, no.
I do things by individual, right? So if I know I have an individual meeting coming up, I can understand what I've got going with that person. If it's an initiative, I keep my notes and stuff that way. It's not perfect, right? But it's just whatever works for you.
Yeah. Lindsay?
I use Google Calendar for my time blocking, but then I use Google Tasks because it integrates easily for my running to-do list, and you can set like deadlines on those tasks, so it just shows up on your calendar.
Del?
You've got a picture up there, but I've used Trello for 7 years, I think, almost religiously, because if it's in my brain and I don't put it somewhere, it's going to be gone tomorrow. So if I have a thought at home and I'm not working, it goes on my to-do list in Trello.
It's the only thing we use in Trello. I used to be a big Trello guy. My wife and I have an entire Christmas thing in Trello, and I can hit reset, and it moves all the cards to the left side, and we can organize them by who we have gifts for, don't, struggling with. We work our way all the way to wrapped and under the tree, Kanban style. Ashley?
I use Microsoft To Do, but most important thing
Used to be Wonderless, yeah.
Yeah. The most important thing for that is setting the recurring tasks that I don't want to have to remember. And again, just that automation of every month I've got to do time cards and every whatever, and setting reminders on that so that it beeps my phone. I can do it real quick and not have to think about it.
Yeah. You just expanded time, right? Anybody else? Any other last ones? Who just uses a notepad?
I use a sophisticated notepad that's a week in one place, that's got a few different boxes. I'm back on paper and it works beautifully for me.
I take hundreds of pages of notes a week on paper next to my desk. I never read it, I never review it. It's not my task management system. You're 7 times more likely to remember something if you write it down. So I have these pages and pages of crazy notes about stuff that I'll even draw a checkbox next to it if I'm supposed to do it. I never look at it again.
I use what's called Full Focus Planner,
Mm-hmm.
and that works really well. As what are my top 3 for this week? What are my top 3 for each day? That allows me to keep it focused on whatever the goals I have are, which I really like.
Is your strategy, do you set that the day before, the week of, after, the day, morning? Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I think I try to do it at least the day before or the week before.
Yeah.
It usually has like a weekly page. You can kind of go through, say, my upcoming week, what are my top 3, and then that can help set what my daily, priorities are going to be.
Yeah. Great. That's all we got. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
So glad to see all of you today. Expect a phone call or a note from me in the near term. I'd love to have your feedback about the meeting. Go out and knock them dead.
Thanks, Doug.